From the AirTech Heating Studios, a Born to Win media production. Welcome to the resurrection of Say It Like You See It.
The NFL season is officially over, and we are on to already the 2023-2024 season. The draft combine starts now as we look forward to the NFL draft. My name is Moose. This is Say It Like You See It, and we are live from my kitchen, not the AirTech Heating Studios today, from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, the heart of Packer country. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Quinn, the Mighty Q Redmond. Quinn, let's bring you in, my friend. How we doing today?
Hey, we rocking and rolling. It's a Tuesday. We know how Tuesdays get rocking. I had a nice little pull day today. Hit a nice little 365 on rack pulls. So, nothing better to get your day started off than moving a bunch of really, really heavy weight and then getting a nice run in. I ran a mile in 6 minutes and 37 seconds this morning. So I am still tracking actually ahead of pace for on April 5th, when my goal and challenge is to run a 5 minute and 45 second or less mile. So I am on pace.
I am currently at a 6:38 mile is what I clocked in. I think it was 2 days ago. So I'm getting down there steadily, but my goal is not 5:45. My goal is going to be somewhere right around the 6:15.
It's the long legs. It's the long legs.
The long legs. All right. So we got a lot of stuff to cover. Obviously, today is the beginning of the draft combine, but it is not the day where we show off the talent. Today is the day where we get all the measurables, right? Like hand size. You can check to see how many reps you get on bench. Guys get measured height-wise, weight-wise. So this is really the opportunity now for a lot of those guys that maybe didn't have the greatest college football season, maybe didn't have the greatest college football career to really showcase their athletic ability. And that is really what the combine is all about.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in terms of it's how you measure a player, but at the same time, you can't only measure a player with the combine. If you see a guy that goes out there and has a stellar combine, they run a pretty number in the 40, they have a good strength number, they've got like these good numbers all across the board with like these different stats of how well they do in these drills. But you have to remember it's drills. And sometimes the drills don't necessarily translate over every time. And you get a lot of receivers that is kind of more the case where they go out there, they run a flashy number and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you have to move them up the draft board immediately. In terms of Henry Ruggs, I think we all understand that that's not actually the best option. So the combine is a fun experience. It's a great time for, the guys that went to smaller schools, if they get an invite, if they're able to go, because essentially they can just make themselves stand out and be like, hey, like I can play the position. And so I have a fancy drill number that kind of pops your eye and, they look good, going through the gauntlet or whatever it is. And, they can definitely move up the draft board. But for some of those guys that are top of draft boards, they're all across, their eyes are really watching them. Sometimes the combine ends up being something that actually impacts their status. They go out there or they run a slow 40. Everyone's like, oh, but he looks faster on the field. And maybe he actually isn't that fast. And so sometimes the combine, if you do poorly, people then start to doubt your on-field play, even if your on-field play like backs up and like speaks for itself. So I think that's why you're seeing lately some of these guys not fully participate in the combine. I think that was the important thing for like when Lamar, he's like, I'm not running a 40. Because for him, it was like, well, if I run a really fast 40, no one's ever going to look at me as a quarterback. Plus, it was, hey, if I run one that's like slightly slower, then people are going to be like, I guess he's actually normal fast. Like it's interesting with the combine because it's both it's really good to have, but it's also really worthless when in the grand scheme.
Yeah. So I've always thought of the combine like this. For your skill players, it doesn't really matter, right? Like for the receivers, unless we're doing the actual route running, how crisp can you run your routes? How's your footwork? How's your agility? Those things are important. But when it comes to a skill player's 40-yard dash time, no one really should be batting an eye, because you could get a guy, like you said, Henry Ruggs out there that runs a 4.28 or a 4.29, and you're like, oh my God, he's insanely fast, but can't run a route concept to save his life. And at the same time, you might get a guy that runs a 4.6, for a late 4.5, like 4.58, 4.6, but has impeccable footwork. Well, I mean, it's a toss-up. So it's more about, to me, what I've always viewed the combine as is the hog mollies up front, the defensive linemen, the offensive linemen. It really showcases now, especially in today's NFL, their athletic ability. You see guys like Tristan Wirfs, and I'm going to give you an example. Last year, the big dude from Georgia. What was his name last year? He went to the Eagles. What was it? Davis, Jordan Davis, I think is his name. Or what was his name?
Either way, he was massive.
He was massive. The biggest guy in the combine by far. He ran the same 40-yard dash time as Patrick Mahomes. And he's 375 pounds. So
you boys are moving these days.
That's what I'm saying. It really showcases now. It's no longer the case where you get a 350-pound athlete that can't run 10 yards without, huffing and puffing. These guys are legitimate athletes. I mean, they put on size and they have that athletic ability. Tristan Wirfs, for example, his 40-yard, his vertical was insane. It was like 40 inches. I mean, for a guy that size to be able to jump out of a pool from a standing point all the way onto the next deck is insane. So to me, it's all about showcasing athletic ability for guys that maybe don't necessarily play athletic positions. I don't think the 40-yard dash really matters for a quarterback. I really don't think. I mean, the only thing that I would really care about if I was watching the quarterbacks, one, their Wonderlic test, and number two, their arm strength. So how far can you just bomb it? That matters to a certain degree, right? It doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing, but people are going to look at that and go, well, one guy throws a 75-yard ball and the other guy throws a 62-yard ball. That may come down to the final decision-making. But no, the draft has always been, to me, just to showcase that athleticism for maybe the guys that, like you said, didn't have the greatest college career or the greatest college football season. And at the same time, for the less athletic positions, O-line, D-line, linebacker, even corner and safety, to me, honestly, they really don't need to showcase blazing speed. They need to showcase other abilities that, corner probably more so for a 40-yard dash time, but it's all about, to me, footwork. How smart are you? How can you read defenses? And what kind of corner are you? Are you a Sauce Gardner? Are you a lockup corner? Are you a ball hawk? There are so many different ways to judge a player based on his skill set rather than just his athletic ability.
Because it really comes down to, I like what you said in terms of showcasing athleticism. You have to do something good enough and flashy enough in the combine, because all 32 teams are there. You've got multiple different levels of that team in the front office that are there watching. So if you can do something that's flashy, that catches someone's eye, you pop a good number, you look good in a drill, you make some type of good catch, you make a snag, something that you do really well, all that really is the good trigger for it is you then get people to come to your pro day. If you're getting a bunch of people to come to your pro day, that's then when I think you start to see a lot more of like the actual, okay, this guy does these things well. And the coaches scheme, like, especially for a quarterback. I mean, I was at Trey Lance's pro day and did an interview and whatnot, talk with them a little bit afterwards. And it was just in terms of getting set up, and the pro day is what they actually care about. And they spend a lot of time prepping for the pro day. They spend a lot of time prepping for the combine, yes, but it's for those guys that didn't go to those big schools, that don't have the attention of, they're at an Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Michigan, like these giant big schools that, someone makes a phone call and there's 27 of the 32 teams that have scouts and GMs and owners at the pro day. Not a lot of guys get that. So unless you're, a guy that they just know about, or you're at a big program, because all of these guys do theirs together. So sometimes if you have like a really, really big name player on the team, like in terms of like the Alabama pro day, like, yes, Alabama as a whole, like you're looking at, but for this year, it's like, like everyone's going to be like, how does Bryce Young look? Like no one needs to see the other players. The other players are the other players. Like we understand how good they are. We understand where they're going. But like Bryce Young at the pro day, people are going to be like, where was his throw? How was his footwork? Did he complete every pass? Did the receivers look good? Was he leading the receivers? Was he crisp in his ball placement? And so you get super critical on the pro day versus the actual combine. But for those guys at the small schools, you make a big play, you get, 3 or 4 coaches or GMs to come to your pro day, you look good. Next thing you know, people are like, oh, how did, so-and-so get drafted, in the second round? It's like, oh, we thought he was a 4th round guy. It's like, well, he made this play and made these things in the combine. And then he had a great pro day. He talked and had great meetings with the team. And that's where it's, then just the guy being the guy and, certain guys in those meetings, because that's the other part of the combine is you get grilled by these coaches and all different types of interviews. And sometimes some of those guys that have had people around them, prepping them and getting ready for these interviews and knowing, hey, you're going to get asked all these types of questions. You need to know these things, but you can't be scripted either. So it has to be a natural thing sometimes for some of these players. And sometimes guys have gotten in trouble. Guys have done certain things. And some teams, they'll take you right off the board based off of, hey, he didn't answer these 2 questions right. Or, hey, we didn't really like the way he did this. And it's a business at the end of the day. And it's like, hey, we just don't think that you're a good candidate for our job opening. And that's the way that the NFL is, as much as everyone understands it's a sport and it's football, but it's a job. These guys are making hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars for this company. And this is a version of that job interview. And so the same way we get asked on any other type of job interview of, hey, what about your background? What did you do at this company? Why were you fired? Why did this happen? What is going wrong with this? It's just about the information getting to know, because they don't want that liability. I mean, for as much credit as we talk now and say, oh, well, like the Browns just gave Deshaun Watson $230 million. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme, like you kind of look at it and you go, I don't know.
Yeah. And listen, I don't want to make it seem like so I do believe that the combine matters. For example, I'm going to go back to last year's draft. Do you remember all the hype surrounding Malik Willis when Malik Willis was like, everyone was like, his arm is massive and he's got this NFL body and he's raw, but man, he's got everything there. He's got the athleticism, he's got the arm strength, he's got the size and the leadership. And then he went to the combine and he was projected to be the first quarterback gone. It was him or Kenny Pickett. And then they get to the combine, and the only thing Malik Willis showed that he did better than Kenny Pickett was arm strength. That was it. I mean, and his body, of course. He was just a naturally bigger guy, bigger athlete, bigger muscles, height, wide, size, everything. But in every other aspect of the combine, Kenny Pickett threw a better football. He led his receivers better. His footwork was better. His hip rotation was better. His mechanics were better. Everything was better on Kenny Pickett's end than Malik Willis. And that's what caused Kenny not only to go first, but Malik to drop down to the 3rd round and be taken by the Tennessee Titans. And I think we can all see right now the kid can't play, or at least he's not even close to being ready to play. So there are a lot of things that can happen. Here's what I would say about the combine, which is, maybe a good thing and a bad thing for some players. It's good for the players, like you said, that are those raw athletes that, hey, I know that I can make something flashy happen. I can show something so that I can get drafted by a team or get pushed up higher in the draft. For the players that maybe aren't nearly as athletic, who are just really, really raw and just, like, hey, for whatever reason, you just can't put it together quite yet, it can hurt you big time. For quarterbacks specifically, the pro day is absolutely where you're going to see them shine. That's really where you're going to see, how's your ball placement? What do your mechanics look like? How's your footwork? How's your mobility? Can you throw on the run? Can you put the ball in a tight window? Can you put it right where you need to be? So you're right. The pro day is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot more telling. But then again, maybe not, because Zach Wilson had a wonderful pro day. And look what happened to him. So there's a lot of guys. Yeah, it got him drafted. It got him drafted 2nd overall.
They got
So
him drafted, which is what it ultimately comes back to. It's like
it
at the
gets you
end of the
drafted.
day, all of this, it's an interview process all the way through. And so it's like you have your first kind of intro, and then your second. And at the end of the day, you'll know come draft night if you did well enough.
Yep.
It's you've got your entire resume, your huddle, your video, everything going into it. And it really comes down to, hey, what what ultimately do we think you're going to fit in? And for some coaches, like there's guys that they can just see, hey, I know I can help this guy. Hey, he's doing this well, but this means this, and what that ultimate outcome can be. And so there's so many different front offices, which is why it's the cool part about the league. And then at the same time, why half of the league is undrafted, because you have so many of these guys that go to the draft and they don't get taken, they fall off boards, whatever happens. They then end up picked up as free agents,
Mhm.
and they were undrafted guys. And then next thing you know, they end up in starting lineups, and people are like, oh, well, he played at like a good university. And so like they think that, oh, he was drafted. And it's like, no, like he went and was on the practice squad for a year, and then a
Yep.
different team picked him up because of a coach. And then next thing you know, he had two good practices. He then was on the second string, and then another play happened in a practice. He looked good at a team meeting, and he had a certain situation play out, and then he had a couple other things, and it's like, boom, starter. And then
Yep.
it's like, where did this guy
Yep.
come from?
No, I
And
get it. And look, I'm saying that there's a lot that goes into the draft and the combine. I just think that it can only it's really a toss up. It's such a unique thing because it can help and hinder a lot of players. Um, but I think the most important thing for the combine is exactly what you alluded to just about 5 minutes earlier, and that was these guys that are going to be first round picks, these guys that are going to be top 15, top 20, top 10, top 5, they're going to get grilled by question after question after question after question. How smart are you? What, how are you off the field? What's your family life like? How's your girlfriend? Whatever the case may be, they're going to get hammered. And all of these guys are going to be hammered because if we're wasting or we're going to spend our number one overall pick on you in this draft, we better know that you're the guy. And I think that's exactly what it comes down to. It's more of, like you said, it's an extensive interview because everybody that's going in the first round, let's be real, like there's no question that you're going to be drafted. It's just going to be, where do you fit in? What culture do you fit in best? And do you fit our culture?
yeah, and that's especially then some of those guys that are the first round picks that then will end up not getting their option picked up, and they end up traded to a team, in a package for someone else. And then you see that guy be a completely different player on a different team because of that, because it's a different culture. That coach says something the same way, but slightly different. So it ends up working out to be, hey, this guy has always been it. And then, oh, hey, why did this guy? It's all a development thing. But that's where sometimes you get some of those guys coming out of Alabama where it's like, hey, Nick Saban is a phenomenal coach and he gets the absolute best out of most of these guys. So by the time they come into the NFL, like they're in a lot of credit going to some coaches that aren't as good as developing further on. Like they're really good at managing and making sure at the right winning and they understand talent, but sometimes they don't elevate that talent to another level. And that's where you see the difference with guys like Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. Is he then takes these guys from the college, completely wrung everything they could out of them, and then we say, hey, guess what? We're about to make you a little bit better. And then they make that other jump. But there's a lot of those coaches that it takes a little bit for some of these guys because they had a great coach in college that was super personal with them. And not only just their one coach, they had so many on the staff. And sometimes it's those assistants and your actual receivers coach or your linebackers coach. Sometimes that is drastically better in college or wherever you just came from. And sometimes that lends to, hey, you just not being as good because you don't have a good communication with the coach. You guys just aren't on the same levels. You're just slightly different off with messaging. But for a guy like Bryce Young, because I had mentioned it earlier, I mean, he's now fallen into, hey, dude, like, you were a great college player. And I mean, that's the reason no one's talking about Stetson Bennett. Like, hey, dude, you're a great college player. Like, you're pretty good. You're not really an NFL fit. For as much credit as we like, I don't think you're Russell Wilson at his peak. I don't think you're, anywhere close to Drew Brees. So
I feel
where's
bad.
this conversation going now? Like, we need to go back to, hey, there are certain guys that are NFL caliber talents, and this whole like quick rinse cycle of, oh, he's kind of a good player. And it's like he plays for 2 seasons and then you're drafting another quarterback. And then you wonder why a lot of these NFL teams now are on this constant yo-yo of, hey, we're good. Hey, we're bad. Hey, we're good. Hey, we're bad. Hey, we're good. Hey, we're bad. And it's like, you guys can't get the quarterback situation figured out because you guys are drafting guys that have these flashes of good because they're actually really not that good because they grew up playing 7-on-7. So they're really good out in space. They're really good with some speed, but in terms of Bryce and what a lot of people are commenting on, it's like his size. Yeah, you put him outside in some cold weather where you have some wind going in some of these situations, and it's like he's not as good. You can't put him in a snowy Green Bay tundra game. Like, he's not going to be the guy for that. His arm is not that strong. Yeah, he's a good athlete, not great. He's not hyper athletic to outrun any of the guys that are in the league. He's not bigger, stronger, faster. He's not more accurate. He's not any of these real, like, hey, you should be a number 1 overall pick. And that's the problem with when Baker went number 1 and Zach Wilson going number 2, like, these guys that are not NFL caliber, not even just top 5 picks. Like, hey, if you got drafted in the 2nd round, do you know how much better your career would be? And there's just too many teams that are grasping at straws because to some degree it's, hey, this is a well-known player. He's got a good media following. He seems like a good person and he came from XYZ school, so XYZ fans are going to, buy his jersey. And it's like, we care about making the money, and that's now where we're at. It's like Zach Wilson was a perfect testament to that. Baker Mayfield was a perfect testament to that. Kyler Murray is a perfect testament to that.
Pump the brakes there a little on Kyler.
What has Kyler done? What has Kyler done? Tell me, what is Kyler's resume compared to every other quarterback in the NFL that tells me he's so much better and
Kyler Murray.
He doesn't win anything.
Kyler Murray is 1,000% a franchise quarterback.
How? He literally has not done anything that shows me he's a franchise level guy. He made a handful of good plays. He's not a guy that plays well down the stretch. He's not a guy that stays healthy for long enough for his teams to matter. He's not a guy that can make the big throws in the right situations and in the right element. He's a good athlete that throws a pretty football. He's great in space. He's great with the lead. He's great if you surround him with perfect talent around him, which is exactly why he won a Heisman at OU.
Okay, so but here's what I'll say. You're asking what Kyler has done to show me that he is that much better than a lot of guys. I'm going to ask you this question, and I just want you to think about it. Take Kyler off of the Cardinals for the entirety of not only last year, this past year, where he missed 9 games or whatever, 8 or 9 games, missed half the season.
He missed a bunch of games.
Correct. And they sucked. Go back to the year prior when they were the hottest team in the NFL and they won, 12 games or 11 games or whatever it was, started off 8, 9-0, whatever that streak was. Take him off that team. That team also sucks. So Kyler Murray, while I'll give you this, has regressed and did regress this year. If you take Kyler off that team, they're brutal. So, I mean, they're also look, they're the number 3 team picking in this year's draft, which means they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. Kyler missed half the season.
Correct,
Half the season done.
But that's on Kyler, and he's going to miss about
I
half
agree.
of this season.
I agree. I'm not saying
congratulations,
that
you as a franchise quarterback, you got hurt because you're too small to play the position, and you're not a guy that's meant to be out there getting tackled by most of these other defenders in the NFL, and you got yourself hurt, and you've now missed a cumulative full season of football, which led to our franchise not winning football games because you haven't been on the field and you give us a better chance to win. But as of right now, you off the field are a bigger liability to us. You're a terrible head case in the fact that no one likes your attitude. No one likes your off the field stuff and the fact that you don't prepare for football games. You don't take the needed time. You now have a brand new coach that is coming in after you had a previous coach that was trying to do his best to scheme and give you an offense centered around him. And yet it didn't work. And it now is a situation where you saw him regress because it goes back to the point that he is a gracious 5'9" standing in cleats on concrete. He is tiny. He cannot see over the offensive line.
I will give you that.
Whole notion of, hey, you can just go out, do it. You can't. This isn't basketball. You're not Muggsy Bogues. And to that same credit, is Muggsy Bogues discussed about as a phenomenal all-time player? We say, we go, hey, he did a great job for being a really small guy. Congratulations for being one of the best small guys to ever play the game. Yes. But that's not the point.
Here's what I'll say. I'll go in and I will. There are certain characteristics you must have if you are a quarterback under 6 feet, right? There are certain characteristics you absolutely must have in order to be successful. So let's look at him. Drew Brees, perhaps the most accurate quarterback that's ever lived. Kyler Murray had elite quickness outside of the pocket. So elusiveness, ability to break tackles, you have to give him that because he's a great athlete. Russell Wilson, pocket presence, pocket maneuvering, the ability to escape danger inside the pocket. I don't think a single quarterback has ever done it better. So each one of those three guys has something, even Baker Mayfield to an extent. Baker Mayfield threw a really great ball and it was very, very accurate in college and his rookie year.
On time. Fair on enough. Time.
Okay, fine. But still, like that was what the best part about his game is that he threw a very accurate football. So all of these guys have all this in common. Bryce Young doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the athletic ability. He's a good athlete, not a great one. He doesn't have the arm strength. Like, there are so many things I can say, doesn't have it.
But you know what's funny? I'll still take Bryce Young over Kyler Murray.
Probably because of attitude, yes.
But here's the thing. I wouldn't waste a third pick. Like, my biggest thing, the first round, especially the top 10, we got to go back to taking for real guys. That's the only way these franchises are going to stop the whole yo-yoing. Like, oh, we think he might, maybe, possibly, there's a hope and string and chance if a perfect scenario, and it's like, that's not going to happen. It's the NFL. Like,
you know realistic. Why? Do you know why that all this started? It's because Josh Allen happened. That's why. Josh Allen, it's the Josh Allen effect. Josh Allen comes into the draft. They reached big time on him. Everyone said, and everyone knew it was a huge reach. He played at Wyoming. If you look at Josh Allen's numbers in Wyoming, they're not good. He was a very average quarterback at Wyoming. In Wyoming.
Yeah, but when he was there, though, everyone saw him throw a ball 70 yards down the field.
But that's my point. Nothing. There's always the one characteristic that one person has, that prospect has, where you're like, oh my God, we've got to take a chance because he's probably got the second strongest arm we've ever seen. So and Bryce Young doesn't have that.
No quarterbacks in this draft have that.
Exactly my point. So why would you waste a top 10 pick on the only player that I would justify taking in this draft and reaching for is Will Levis. And the only reason I say that is because ran a pro style offense already.
And even he's not good enough for it.
but that's the only guy I would consider doing it for. He's ran the pro style offense. He's got the size. He's got the arm. He's incredibly intelligent. I'm really curious to see what his Wonderlic test is. I bet you it's over 30. Okay. There are a lot of boxes. What?
I'm just saying a Wonderlic score over 30 still is it's out of 50. So a 30 isn't really that great. That's a 60%. I'd hope a quarterback.
No, no, isn't it out of 35? Didn't Ryan Fitzpatrick have a 35 out of 35?
I'm pretty sure there's one that's out of 50. There's a Wonderlic that's out of 50. There might be one that's out of 35, but if there is,
I could be mistaken. I'm thinking there was one that Ryan Fitzpatrick almost got a perfect score, or did get a perfect score. But anyway, my point being, Levis has a lot of boxes that I tick off. Size, tick, arm, tick, pro style offense, tick, smart, tick. Like he's got a lot of qualities that I look for in an NFL quarterback, but I don't see it from a raw talent perspective. If you gave me all of the intangibles of, all of those things I just talked about with Levis, and you added those to Bryce Young, I mean, it would be a no-brainer. This kid would be, he'd be Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, there are no players in this draft, especially at the quarterback position, that I'm like, you are a generational talent. Even on defense, I think Will Anderson is the best player in the draft. And even I see being like a Kayvon Thibodeau his first few years. Is going to be good. Is he going to be great? No, he's not going to make a Pro Bowl. But I mean,
and as an edge rusher, no matter how much disruption you can cause in a game, even if you had an absolute killer game and you had 5 sacks, it's like, okay, you made an impact on 5 plays. The offense runs like, I don't know, 75 plays a game.
Correct.
Like, okay, thank you for your 5 plays that you made and contributed to. But it's like, if they score 3 other plays, it's like, okay, like thanks for your 5 plays of greatness. You still didn't affect the actual outcome of the game.
And this draft, I think, is being overblown, as there's a lot of guys that there's a lot of good players in this draft. There's not a lot of great ones. In fact, I don't think there are any great ones.
I think this draft might produce the most long-time starting players, because they're just like, it's just going to be a good spread of good players that go to every organization. They end up on the roster and they stick on the roster. And like, a lot of these guys are going to turn into a lot of jersey sale numbers, because they're going to be on every team they're on for at least a second contract.
Well, so here's, and this is leading into our second topic. Like you said, a lot of these guys are going to be there and have these long careers because they have very, very good players, no great ones. And to that aspect, we were talking about Bryce Young. I don't see him having more. I don't think he'll even reach 10 years in the NFL. He's not big enough. He's going to get hit.
No, he can have the same he's not going to be the same as Baker, because Baker went, well, I guess here's the thing, because the Bears are most likely going to trade the number 1 pick, which means that a team is going to take Bryce Young, which means that he's going to have the exact same trajectory as a Baker Mayfield did.
Right. I mean, and then Bryce Young is going to start for 3 years.
Heisman winning quarterback.
Right. So he's going to start for 3 years. He'll have 1 year out of those 3 that's marginally good, right? He'll go out, he'll throw for 3,700
Probably
yards.
His rookie year.
He'll go out and throw for 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 picks, and he'll have a 64% completion percentage.
Dependent on the team he goes to, dependent on who the Bears trade with, if that happens and he gets taken, most likely he will have a very good rookie year where they take an offense, they chop it up, they blend it down, and they make it super simple. And it's something that he's going to be able to plug right into. And it's going to be, hey, just make the throw. Don't mess it up. Go out there and look like you know what you're doing. And so that way, every once in a while, we'll give you a chance. You can make a big play. And he'll probably have his best season as his rookie year. He'll most likely have, then if it is truly that way with the offense, people will catch on to it very quick. So probably the tail end of his rookie year will be a slight taper off. And then his sophomore season, people are going to catch on to it. He'll have more responsibilities with the offense. He'll have a chance to make more mistakes, which if you give him an opportunity to make more mistakes, just by the laws of averages, you will make more mistakes. People are going to crush him for it, depending on which media he's having to deal with. If it turns into an issue that he's making mistakes that he's causing them to lose, then the media starts getting on you. Then the media comes after you. It changes your confidence. It changes with your front office staff. Your front office staff get on your head coach. Your head coach then starts snipping and getting on you. And then it turns into a different pressure-filled situation. And it's going to depend on him.
Now, right, correct. And there are teams in this draft that I believe are going to be chomping at the bit to get Bryce Young simply because they're desperate to be relevant, right? The Colts, I think, are really interested in Bryce Young. The Panthers, I think, are very interested in Bryce Young. The Falcons are interested in Bryce Young. There's reports that
they just dumped Marcus Mariota.
Exactly. So there are, and even Vegas has some slight interest in not Marcus Mariota, in
I was going to say, they're bringing him back.
Bryce Young. So Bryce Young, if he can go to one of these warm weather dome teams, they instantly become relevant for at least a couple of years. And I truly believe if you put Bryce Young on the Falcons, that is automatically a 6 or 7 win team straight off the bat with the roster that they have right now. I'm not saying that they're going to, and they may have a chance to win that division because of how bad it is. But I'm just saying that
the Falcons with Bryce Young are good enough to win that division because they then would be able to make one other move that would get them good enough on offense. That would be a very wise pick for them.
Right. And it's just going to be a matter of, like we said, where do they trade? Who do the Bears give up? So Bryce Young is going number 1. I'm just going to say, I'm going to put it out there right now. Bryce Young is going 1. It's just going to be a matter of who's going to go up and get him.
That would be hilarious if something that happens like in 2017, where you have a team that trades up and we're all like, yeah, we know which quarterback's going. Oh, baby, here we come. And it's going to be like Hendon Hooker, University of Tennessee. And people are going to be like,
God.
What?
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky. And that was just the most unbelievable draft.
Because if I had to put it like this, how good would Hendon Hooker have been if he played on Alabama's roster?
Oh, fantastic.
He would have been amazing. Which is why I'm still sticking with the fact that I think Hendon Hooker is the guy. Hendon Hooker is the guy. He's going to be that one guy, because they're not really talking about him. The whole Anthony Richardson thing, Will Levis, CJ Stroud. And then you have to remember Hendon Hooker's chilling out down here like, hey, hi, I beat Alabama this year. Like, hello, I had a great season. And like, I got better each year of my career to this ultimate great last year that I just had. And hello, I beat Alabama. Like, hello, the guy that you guys are talking about, I beat him.
Like, it would have been just as impressive or more impressive if he would have taken out Georgia. Okay. I will say, well, hold on, just hear me out. I would have said, I will say this. I'll give you this. That LSU team with Burrow may have been the best talent-wise college football team we've ever seen. This is the best back-to-back college football seasons I've ever seen from a singular team. Was last year's Georgia Bulldogs and this year's Georgia Bulldogs.
Last year's Georgia was way better than this year's Georgia. This year's Georgia should have lost 3 times.
But I'm saying, those back-to-back years were both just insane. I mean, the amount of talent that came out of Georgia in the last 2 years is just ridiculous. It's going to be interesting. I'm saying Bryce Young's going to go 1. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say Will Levis goes 2. I'd probably put Anthony Richardson going 3 with all the hype that he's had. Someone's going to go up and get him. And then I would probably say CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's stock is dropping fast. And I think it's because people realize that he wasn't that
Justin
good.
Fields' fault.
Well, no, but he wasn't that good. I can tell you this. The very first game that I watched CJ Stroud played this year was against Notre Dame. Very first game of the college football season. I understand it's the first game of the year. I understand it. You got to shake the rust off. But Notre Dame had a good team this year, not even a great team. They were a very solid B team this year. And CJ Stroud struggled against Notre Dame. They put up 10 points in the first half. I mean, like, he struggled against them. And again, first game of the season, got to shake the rust off, nerves, national primetime television. CJ Stroud did not look like an NFL quarterback in that game. He looked like a very good, very capable college quarterback.
I've said
he's Tyrod Taylor. That's who he is. He's Tyrod Taylor.
That's actually being generous.
He's going to be Tyrod Taylor. That's going to be CJ Stroud's career. And there's nothing wrong with that. He'll make some money. He'll have
I know. It's like people think that, oh, he's Tyrod Taylor, sounds like a bad thing. And it's like, oh, what? He's in the league for 13 years and makes millions of dollars playing quarterback. It's like, come on now.
CJ Stroud is going to have, and I feel bad saying this because I don't like predicting a guy's future and labeling him a bust, but CJ Stroud will do this. He'll start 1 year. It won't look good. They're going to say, well, we'll give him one more year. That year's not going to look good. And then they're going to say, okay, you did just enough to where you can certify being a backup in this league. And that'll be it. That'll be CJ Stroud's career. I feel terrible saying it, but from what I've seen, the eye test, he's not an NFL QB.
I'm telling you, when the draft, I'll know a lot more after the end of this week when the actual combine happens. True. And then after the pro days. After the pro days is when I will have a very good analysis of which quarterbacks are going to be successful and which ones aren't. For me, it purely comes down to that. I'm going to watch very intently this weekend to see, because Will is throwing, Richardson is throwing, and I want to say Stroud is throwing as well. And I want to say Hendon is throwing as well. So
isn't Richardson is throwing, you said?
Yeah, he's throwing.
Yeah.
I think the only person not throwing is Bryce.
Right. For whatever reason. All right, we got to move on to our final topic. A little NBA talk. First time we've done this on Say It Like You See It. So I want to two things that I want to bring up specifically. One is Damian Lillard's 71-point game. And only because
like
of
Jason, it's like Jason's Tatum 55-point All-Star game. I don't care. The offense in the NBA and the 3-point shot, they're just letting him go. Go ahead. Everyone can score.
Here's what I'll say. Damian Lillard's shooting ability is quite honestly top 4 I've ever seen all time. I would say pure shooting.
You have to have a 1-syllable name as a 3-point shooter, which is why he applies. Clay, Steph, Ray.
Dame. And then there's Reggie. But so the best shooter of all time is Steph. It's not even close. The next best pure shooter is Klay Thompson, and you're crazy if you think otherwise. Klay Thompson, in terms of pure shooting ability, is by far and away the second greatest.
He did finally pass Ray. I would say he did finally pass Ray based off the fact of the other night when he hit 12 again. And it was just like, okay.
Holds the NBA all-time record.
Okay.
Over Steph, most 12-point, 3-point games. He has 3 of them. And then I would probably put Ray Allen at 3. I would say Damian Lillard is number 4. And the only reason I say that he's not above Ray is because Ray did it more efficiently than Dame.
And Dame did it in the playoffs more?
Yes. Well, factual. Dame, I feel horrible for Damian Lillard.
He's loyal.
And he's loyal. And he's championshipless.
He's loyal.
In fact, he's multiple playoff series lists. No, but
he's not even Western Conference championship material.
Damian Lillard will go down as one of the great, and this is why he'll get into the Hall of Fame first ballot, and it's not close. Dame's shooting ability is just uncanny. I mean, it's almost like he defies mechanics. Like Steph's is short and sweet. Dame just chucks things up. I mean, it looks kind of wonky. It looks like it's not that he has bad mechanics. it doesn't look as pure and as smooth as Steph, and it's not as efficient as Clay's, which is, Clay gets the ball here and it's here to here. I mean, it's like 3 centimeters or 3 feet of just perfect form. Dame looks like he's trying really hard to make it look good, and it goes in. So I'm very, very happy about Damian Lillard. Great job, 71 points. I think he's only the 8th player in NBA history to reach 70 points or more. Kobe, now Dame, you had who had 70 points? Donovan Mitchell did it. I don't even think Michael made. Devin Booker has a 70-point game. Michael didn't make it. Michael had 66, 67, I think, maybe 63, somewhere in there. So yeah, congratulations to Dame. And then the other topic that I wanted to bring up, LeBron James, now out again with another foot injury. Is it time for the Lakers to just say, it's time to move on from LeBron and AD? We got to scrap them for picks, rebuild.
The LeBron thing. So LeBron, I think, has his own issue. So the Lakers, they filled a lot of the problems that they needed. They got some size, they got some good wing defending, they got good shooting, and then you have LeBron and AD. Like, they filled their weaknesses at the point. They finally, in terms of more depth, but really primarily the shooting and getting that out, because now you can allow LeBron to work better, be a facilitator, let AD do what he needs to do. But the problem is AD doesn't really play enough, nor does he play what seems like hard enough or just good enough basketball on the majority of nights. And then now LeBron is turning into, hey, Father Time's caught up to you. Like, we can't all do this forever. And it's, hey, this is now, and we also at the same time, he's 6'8", 6'9". Like, let's not remember, like, he's not a small guy.
No.
When you
LeBron's huge.
When you start injuring things as a big man, like below your knee, they don't exactly heal correctly. And not only that, it then leads to very rapidly you doing a lot more of that. Look at Shaq. Look at any big man. You start hurting ankles, you start hurting feet, and it's like, okay, you're now carrying the weight of your entire body on this slightly wrong foot, slightly wrong ankle, slightly tweaked this. And then things compound and things get worse. Now he's older, so he doesn't heal as fast. And in terms of where, like, I think he's just holding as long as he can. I think he just wants to play with Bronny. And so saying the things that he did, like, I think for him, if Bronny's stock goes up as it can, and it turns into Bronny is then the good enough player by his own standing, that's, not his dad saying, oh, if whoever gets Bronny gets me. I think if Bronny then turns into, oh, he has his own, like, value, I think LeBron would then be like, nah, like, go ahead. I don't think he would try to step in and, like, overzealously be like, hey, I'm going to come and play for that team too. Like, if Bronny gets to a status that, hey, he's an actual legit lottery pick on his own without LeBron saying what he's saying.
Right.
But AD doesn't play enough. Like, AD is just not, like, as a 28, 29-year-old, like, the dude should be absolutely balling out the time. And it's like, what are you doing? How are you not better? How are you not better all the time?
So there are just some players, in my opinion, that, and Anthony Davis is there was a couple years back. Do you remember when he said he hasn't even picked up a basketball or hasn't thought about basketball until, a month and a half outside, and everyone crushed him for it. I think Anthony Davis works very, very hard. I've seen 100%. The video. I've seen the videos of him. He puts in the work. There are just some guys, especially when you're that big and you're that athletic and you're that, muscle built, and you play the way that Anthony Davis plays, because he doesn't play a post-up game. He's always running. He's always doing something. His body just betrays him. He's just one of those guys that's always going to be injury prone. Now, there was a narrative earlier on this season where LeBron broke the scoring record. Anthony Davis was shown on the sidelines ostensibly, apparently pissed off because, or annoyed,
they
or
lost
not
the
happy.
Game.
I think, and I really think this is the truth, I think we're reading into this wrong. I don't think Anthony Davis was pissed off that LeBron did it. I think Anthony Davis is pissed off because this entire season has been about LeBron breaking the record. And here's where I will give LeBron a little bit of credit. Every season that LeBron has played, it has always been about one thing: winning a championship, getting to the championship, winning the championship. You've got to win, got to win, got to win. He's always been about his teammates. He's a great teammate. He's a wonderful teammate, gets other guys involved, has a great relationship with them on and off the court, is a mentor to a lot of the young guys. LeBron is a wonderful teammate. He's always been about getting his guys involved. This one year, the 1 year LeBron was like, you know what? It's going to be about me. I want it to be about me. The narrative's about me. It's about me doing it at this age, breaking this record, doing it longer than anyone else at the highest level that anyone's ever done it. This is the one time LeBron said, I'm going to be selfish. This year, guys, it's not about winning a championship. And I think LeBron knew that going into this. They knew they didn't have the best roster. He knew Anthony Davis injuries were a concern. He knew that, hey, I'm getting older. I'm going to be injured this year. This year is about me. It's about me and the glory of me. And there is nothing wrong with that. But you can't disguise that as saying, well, it's about winning a championship. It's about winning this year for the Lakers, because it's not. And you know it's not. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had Russ on the team to start the year. It wouldn't have taken as long to move him as it did. I mean, you would have dumped that contract faster than anyone. And I realize it's difficult, but you could have said, we don't care about the picks anymore. Just get them off your hands. And it took way too long to do it. Why? Because it wasn't about winning a championship this year. Yes, going forward, it's going to be about winning a championship for the Lakers. But LeBron is out of his championship window. And he knows it. There's going to be no more championships for LeBron James. It's done.
And that's the point that I've gotten to with LeBron's. It's like, yes, he's now played so long. The fact that he's amassed all of like these stats and awards, it's like, that's now the point. He's played long enough that I'd be upset if he didn't. Like, it would actually be worse to his career if it's like, hey, dude, like, how did you not do some of these things? Like the fact that LeBron doesn't and for a while, like, didn't score 40 a night. That's the type of, it's like, that's the reason I knock on LeBron all the time, is I'm like, dude, I've seen how good you can be. But then I literally see nights where he just like out there. He's like, I'm going to play good enough. I'm going to kind of give it. And then the load management stuff. I was never a fan of that. And like, there's a reason MJ only played the amount of time that he played. One being the fact that technology and education and nutrition and science and training wasn't as good as it is now. Like, yes, it was good. It's now better. It's elevated. That's helped massively. Then you had the change in the game, the change in the way it's played, the change in the scoring, the change in the pay. The game is different now compared to what it was when MJ played. But it's also the fact of MJ played all 82 games all the time. And then now it's like these guys, there was 5 players in the 2021-2022 season that played all 82 games. It's like, these guys are getting paid millions of dollars. This is your job to be out on the court playing. It's not, hey, I'm just kind of not feeling it today. Like, hey, I'm not really. No. That is your job. This is not, I'm kind of tired, guys. Like, I just want to, like, no.
I'm with you on the load management. I'm with you on the load management. If I went to my boss,
you are injured, stay off the floor. But if you are hurt or tired, get your ass out on the floor. Like, yes, I'm sorry. I do not care about, I have to play in a back-to-back. Oh, my entire basketball career, I grew up playing basketball tournaments where I played 7 games in a day. And even when I was hooping in college, I was playing, at practice, and we were playing a bunch of, 3-on-3s, 4-on-4s, 5-on-5s. And then we were playing 1-on-1s. And then after that, we'd go to the rec and we'd ball. And then afterwards, and now even at practice, we're doing all this stuff and playing all the time. But you know what? For a game, Not for a game.
Listen,
Nah, I
I
can't. I
get it.
can't do it. I'm a little tight. I
I
slept
get it.
wrong.
I get it. Listen, I'm a radio host. If I went to my boss and I said, hey, listen, I'm only going to work 4 days a week. I'm going to take that extra day. I'm going to take all Fridays off. But I promise you, all 4 of those shows that you're going to get are great shows, but I'm never going to work Fridays. He would say, get the fuck out of here. Like, no, you're crazy. So I agree with you to a certain extent. I think there are certain players, their bodies literally can't handle it. So, for example, Joel Embiid.
So don't have the job.
But Joel Embiid is another worldly talent, one of the greatest NBA talents we've ever seen. He's one of those guys that if he played all 82 games, you would diminish his career and the time that you get him ostensibly in half. So instead of a 14-year career, you'd maybe get him for 7 years. There are certain players that their bodies can't handle it, especially when you get to be that big. Now, here's what I will say. Kawhi Leonard.
Oh my God.
He's the one that started this. Kawhi Leonard is only 6'6", 6'7", maybe 6'7". He's more about a 6'6.5". So he's roughly the exact same size as MJ. Plays the exact same game as MJ. Offensively, get a bucket. Defensively, he's the best two-way player in the game, just like MJ was. Kawhi Leonard has had some injuries in his career, but for the longest time, the load management was simply just because he wanted to be the most rested and the best version of himself in the playoffs. And he won championships on it. So that everybody thought that's the model. And that's the reason why. So Kawhi Leonard is the one that you can blame for that. Load management was only a thing because of him.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I think you saying, oh, like some guy, if you are not injured, you should
Without
be playing.
question. Without
That
question.
that is at the end of the day, that is the nature of you signed a contract to play. If you are not injured, you need to be out playing the game. Period. End of story. Don't care about, oh, it's a back-to-back. Don't care about I'm tired. Don't care about I need rest. Nope. That's the nature of the game. You're supposed to prepare your body for the season and to play all 82 games. You know the schedule. You know exactly what's going on. If you are injured, that is a different story. But you not, having the ability to play all 82 games, that's what the offseason is for. The offseason is for rest and getting your body right so you can play the entire season. But yet it is now turned into, well, I'm going to take the off season to not really do much. And then I'm going to kind of prep, but then I'm going to really rest. And then I'm going to kind of get after it. And then I'll kind of play, but it's like, who really cares about these games? And it's just like, I'm so sick of it. End of the day,
Yes.
if you are not injured, get your ass out on the court. You are under contract. That is your job. Go out and play.
It's not just your job to be an NBA basketball player. As a professional athlete, your job is to be in shape all the time. That is why you get paid $15-20 million a year. You're in shape all the time. Your job is to be more in shape than everyone else on the planet. So yes, I completely agree. Injuries are going to happen to every player in their careers at some point. It's the nature of the game. It's going to happen. But if you're taking 10 games off a year simply because you need to rest and recover, you're playing like you're not the best athletes then. I mean, you shouldn't be paid as much.
I think that would be the easiest thing. You don't get paid for the games you don't play. That would be the easiest way to stop all of this.
Well,
you do not. With the exception of being injured, you will not be paid for the games that you decide to sit out.
Correct.
Plain and simple.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we've got for today. Just about at 1 hour for Say It Like You See It. Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. That's Facebook, Instagram at Say It Like You See It Pod, TikTok. We're also on YouTube. And like I said, wherever you get your podcast streaming services, etc. From Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, the heart of Packers country, and Fargo, North Dakota, This has been Say It Like You See It. We'll see you on Friday.